Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard. Welcome to the edition of the Pan-African Pyramid show here. This is the People's Parliament at Fair Hotel every Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. and recorded version of the same runs on NBS television on Saturday from 4 to 5. And the speaker is Andrew Irumba Katusabe. Follow us on our social media platforms live right now on Google. Just put in the keyword is Pan-African Pyramid. We're on Twitter, we're on TikTok. But also you can follow us on our usual platforms, the Andrew Irumba Live and the Spy Uganda, our media partners. Welcome aboard. This is actually our first show since we took a break last year in August when we went for holidays after the awards. We're coming back. This is the first show in 2025. And the issue is DRC Congo. There is a question about DRC and we are here to look for an answer. Ladies and gentlemen, in early 2025, fighting between Congolese security forces and militia groups led by M23 escalated rapidly, culminating in M23's capture of Goma, the regional hub of the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, called DRC, on the Rwandan border. Rwanda, the primary backer or supporter of the M23 armed group, supported its offensive in Eastern DRC with 3 to 4,000 ground troops. As Goma fell, thousands of locals, many of whom were already internally displaced, fled to the region. On February 4th, M23 declared a unilateral ceasefire between 900 people, that's by UN estimates, and 2,000 people, and that's by Congolese government estimates, were killed in the offensive on Goma. M23 is the latest in a series of Rwanda-backed militant groups that have been vying for territory and valuable natural resources in the Eastern Congo since the late 1990s. Ladies and gentlemen, the escalation in Goma exacerbated the nationwide political violence, including in the capital, Kinshasa, which surged following the DRC's December 2023 national elections, with 1 million Congolese seeking refuge abroad and 21 million people in the country in need of urgent medical, food and other aid. The DRC represents one of the largest and deadliest humanitarian crises in the world. And here's the background. Since 1996, conflict in Eastern DRC has led to approximately 6 million deaths. The first Congo War between 1996 and 1997 began in the wake of the 1994 Rwandan genocide, during which ethnic Hutu extremists killed an estimated 1 million minority ethnic Tutsi and moderate Hutus in Rwanda, DRC's neighbor to the east. During and following the genocide, nearly 2 million Hutus refugees crossed the Congolese border, mostly settling in refugee camps in the North Kivu and South Kivu provinces. A small subset of those Rwandans who entered DRC were Hutu extremists who began organizing militias within the Congo. Pressure intensified and Tutsi militias organized against the Hutu groups, and as foreign powers began taking sides. Following the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, victory against the genocidal Rwandan government, the new Tutsi-led government began its involvement in DRC, then known as the Republic of Zaire. Rwandan troops under the leadership of President Paul Kagame and Congo-based Tutsi militias with Rwandan backing launched an invasion of Zaire, which was ruled at the time by Mobutu Sese Seko was a banned. Kigali justified both efforts by arguing that Hutu groups in Eastern DRC were still a threat to their Tutsi population and that the Mobutu regime was harboring Hutu extremists who had fled across the border. Rwanda waged the first Congo War against Zaire with the help of other African states, most significantly Uganda, where we are seated right now in Kampala, but also Angola and Burundi, who had their own security concerns related to Mobutu's support of rebel groups across the continent. The Rwandan coalition's invasion was coordinated with the help of Zaire's then opposition leader, Laurent Kabila. Thousands died. Some casualties were former Hutu militants and members of the armed groups, but many were refugees and non-combatant Congolese in North and South Kivu in Eastern DRC. Methods of warfare were brutal, especially those employed by Rwandan soldiers and Tutsi groups. When Mobutu fled Kinshasa, the Kabila-Kagame coalition won the First Congo War in 1997. Kabila was installed as president of Zaire and changed the country's name back to the Democratic Republic of Congo. In 1998, the Second Cold War broke out following the deterioration of relations between Kigali and Kinshasa. To diminish the impression that Rwanda held undue influence over the Congolese government, Kabila denied claims that Rwanda had been responsible for winning the war and placing him in power. Kabila also began removing ethnic Tutsis from his government and took measures to weaken Rwanda's military presence in eastern DRC. By the late 1990s, it was becoming clear to the world that targeted campaigns against Hutu populations during the First Congo War, led mainly by Kagame's army, amounted to war crimes. This growing international consensus reflected poorly on the fledgling Kabila regime. In a reversal of alliances, Kabila ordered all foreign troops out of the Congo and allowed the Hutu armed groups to organize at the border once again. Rwanda responded by invading in 1998. Kigali's stated aim was to create a zone in the DRC-Rwanda borderlands controlled by its own troops to create more distance from Hutu groups in eastern DRC. Congolese forces supported by Angola, which also reversed alliances following the ascent of Laurent Kabila, Namibia and Zimbabwe, fought the Rwandan, Ugandan and Burundi militaries, as well as various rebel groups supported by Kigali and Kampala. Amidst the course of war, Laurent Kabila was assassinated in a 2001 coup attempt planned by his aides and guards. Those involved were imprisoned, and Kabila's son, Joseph Kabila, took power. The Second Congo War was formally brought to a close under the Junior Kabila in 2002. While estimates vary greatly, the death toll of the Second Congo War and the associated humanitarian disaster may have reached over 3 million people by 2004. Between 2002 and 2003, Rwanda, Uganda, and DRC began implementing peace agreements that authorized a transitional government in Kinshasa led by Joseph Kabila. Despite these agreements, the establishment of Truth and Reconciliation Commissions and a renewed UN peacekeeping force, unrest and clashes persisted in eastern DRC. Joseph Kabila was formally inaugurated following a long-awaited popular election in 2006. One of the most prominent rebel groups to emerge in the early 2000s was the March 23M movement. You call it today the M23, made up primarily of ethnic Tutsis. Between 2012 and 2013, the M23 became an undeniable force in eastern DRC, and Kinshasa accused Kigali of backing the group. In 2013, the UN Security Council authorized the reoffensive brigade under the mandate of the UN Organization Stabilization Mission in the DRC, and you can call it MONUSCO, to support the Congolese army in its fight against M23. The MONUSCO effectively supported the Congolese army, and M23 called off its initial campaign in 2013. Evidence of Rwanda's support for M23 caused lasting damage to the Kigali-Kinshasa relationship. Over the past 2 decades, other flashpoints have arisen in states on the Congo-Rwanda border, such as Ituri, most often involving ethnic and militant groups, with contestations going back to the Congo Wars. And the 21st century brought one more complication to peace efforts in the Democratic Republic of Congo: the proliferation of mining operations. DRC is home to some of the world's largest reserves of metals and rare earth minerals used to produce advanced electronics. As the world has become more reliant on cobalt, copper, zinc, and other minerals, local and external groups have become more incentivized to get involved in the Congolese conflict. So, dear comrades, with a background of history about the conflict, without gambling, without fear or favor, without meandering, what's the ultimate answer to the decades-old DRC question? Let's debate.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Mr. Speaker, sir, history is such an important ingredient in one's life, to the extent that the superpowers which pretend that it is not that important after all have gone ahead to put in place industries. America has got Hollywood, which is not just bringing lots of foreign exchange into the country, but also marketing the image of America globally. France and Britain, the biggest powers in colonial time, took it upon themselves, after they had been rudely chased out of Africa, to steal the artifacts and take them along. Up to now, they are still holding them. That is the power of history. Mr. Speaker, sir, it would be unfair for us to pretend that we are going to come up with the solutions, propose the solutions for the problem in DRC without informing ourselves of solutions of what the problems are. Permit me, therefore, in that respect, to historicize the problem of present-day DRC. Congo, or DRC as we know it, was certainly part of the bigger bloc, which later on came to be called Africa, and it was punctuated with traditional kingdoms. The present, or at that time, what was known as Rwanda Kingdom, was actually part of the greater Congo, which also, along with other bigger or relatively smaller kingdoms, comprised the Congo then. It was governed according to chiefdoms, kingdoms, and other forms of traditional leaders, until the rude interruption and entry of the colonial master. Later, this Congo was to be known as or renamed Zaire. Later, it changed the name, as you ably captured in the preamble, to Democratic Republic of Congo, and it is postulated that it now contains, or within her borders, it has roughly between 98 to 102 million people currently. And the size, to roughly bring it to the attention of the comrades here, is more or less Uganda times 5, or maybe 4.5. or thereabout. Now that gives you an impression of such a mass of a country, to the extent that we have got pessimists who have come up to suggest that the solution, therefore, is to divide the Democratic Republic of Congo into 2 or even 3, like they have been harboring intentions of dividing up Nigeria. That this size is actually one of the problems leading to poor governance and therefore causing the problems. Of course, at a later stage in my submission, I will disagree like I do now. Mr. Speaker, sir, this very Democratic Republic of Congo is part of the geographical bloc that in in 1885, at Berlin conference, some cantankerous characters from mainland Europe gathered and petitioned the entire Africa, but that one does not mean that there were no European activities on the continent even before they sat at Berlin. There is sometimes a confusion from us, the historians, to want to submit to the population that actually the work of Europeans on the African continent started from 1884 at the Berlin Conference. Much earlier, the activities of Europeans on the African continent had started existing. In a manner of speaking, therefore, the 1884 to 85 Berlin Conference was just an icing on the cake, but the cake had already been made or baked. Mr. Speaker, sir, the fact that DRC is estimated, and of course we contest some of these estimates because a group of professional Africans are not the ones who have actually done it, and even those professional Africans like geologists, mathematicians, and other manner of professionals, we also have a problem because we shall now begin to ask where they studied from, because some universities are known to churn out black-skinned graduates, but who in terms of thinking and execution of work are mainly whites. Mr. Speaker, sir, DRC is the fourth largest mineral resource. In all the minerals that you want to mention, be it gold, copper, cobalt, zinc, etc., etc., that all the essential components, for instance, to make nuclear bombs, to make planes be able to fly, and other highly sophisticated science, it is DRC that has got those minerals. And as a consequence, therefore, the imperialistic West has developed interests from long. It is not just yesterday. It would be unfortunate for us who care to extend our investigations in the problem of DRC to reduce the problems of DRC as of 90s. They date back, like I hope, exposed to the audience, the times when Leopold II set his foot on the soil of Congo. This peacekeeping force has for years been stationed in the DRC. If anybody or if any country was to be peaceful as a consequence of high spending and high military presence, DRC should be even better than the globally acclaimed peaceful country on the earth. But instead, it is the most troubled, giving a sense, Mr. Speaker, sir, that part of the problem, if not the only problem, is because of the so-called United Nations. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I wind up, the political, ideological bankruptcy sponsored by the superpowers is a deliberate effort by the conceptual West to ensure that DRC keeps in the shape in which it is simply because of the great rich resources it has, including being the pharmaceutical hub of Africa, and as such, keeping it in constant wars like it was by a combination of CIA and other capitalistic hegemonic European countries, will see to it that a number of rebel outfits are multiplied and sponsored, and they will blame neighbors like Rwanda and Uganda. I want to conclude by saying, tribe is not a problem in the DRC. Africa has got a history, and my senior brother, Piolo Lumumba, is very instructive. He notes that if any geographical location is a master of living in diversity, that geographical location is called Africa. Europe failed. Rotatina here will tell you, if you go to France, they are largely French. They are not Germans. If you go to Germany, they are Germans. They are not any other thing. If you go to Belgium, the same thing. Those people cannot live with any other apart from themselves. It is only Africa that can live with others. And that is why they make sure they sponsor confusion such that we also behave like they do. I want to recommend that the African Union should make it a top agenda, the question of DRC, such that every heads of state meeting should have DRC as one of the items. I also recommend, as part of the solution, that we should have regional bodies, since EYACA and DRC is already part of EYACA, to ensure that we create a standby force and make it very forceful, such that we dictate what happens in that part of the country. But most importantly, what should be done is that there must be a rebirth of a Sankara. There must be a rebirth of Osejefo Kwame Nkrumah. There must be a rebirth of a Patrice Lumumba in Democratic Republic of Congo in order to have the organic solution of DRC for DRC. I thank you.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
When Irumba told me about what we should be speaking about this week, and what he thought was the important topics to restart this cycle of conference, he said that we are going to look for solution for Congo. Look for solution in Congo. That's more or less how we spoke about that. So I had to come with a solution to find a solution to the really complex problem, right? So on first dynamics, what I call the dynamics, I will name 3 dynamics, right? So things get simpler. The first one is to say that the region was a place for a lot of kingdoms. As we know here, Bunyoro, Buganda, there were a lot of kingdoms in the region, and that was really quite unique. It was a dynamics that was quite unique. You don't find the similar dynamics in the east of Congo. You find the dynamics around the Great Lakes, especially like here. And so what it means concretely is that you had to fight. To establish a kingdom, you need to fight. There's no place in the world where you can just come and they give you the land and now you call yourself a king. There were fights, right? There were perpetual fights between different kingdoms. And what used to happen is, after such fight, when the kingdom would be established, you still have like factional disputes. This brother, he won the throne. That other brother, he won the thrones. What do we do? So you have situations where all of those kingdoms were into similar situation, and all the time a conflict breaks out, a certain amount of people will leave and re-establish themselves somewhere else. And that somewhere else, in many cases, would be towards the south or towards the west, so towards what is the east of Congo today. So the first dynamics is that there were a lot of what we call state make wars and wars make states situations in the region, right? The region, so a lot of kingdoms, and those kingdoms have to use force and coercion to rule. You don't have any political entity that rule just on willingness. So you need to have people, and you have some fights. And naturally, the fight leads to displacements of populations. The fight leads to migration of populations. And when you start to look at the history of the different ethnic groups that are in the east of Congo, the Ndombe, the Lema, the Riga, all what you see is that they come from somewhere else at some point. And they found this place as a safe land for themselves. They established themselves. So first dynamic, a lot of migration from different places. So it's not a space where I can come and tell you, like for example, Great Zimbabwe or the Zulu Kingdom, that used to be one rulers. This is the ruler, that's it. It's a place where you have a lot of mushrooming states that organize coercitions. Not everyone's happy about that coercion, so they move around, right? So that's what I call the first dynamics. Second important dynamics. So remember the first one is what? The first one is a lot of migrations because there's a lot of coercitions that are exercised because new powers try to impose new rules, new dynamics, new discipline, right? New rituals, new norms. The second one is about the fact that when we look at history, what we see is that the region for resources were always used by Easterners. East of Congo resources have always been taken by Easterners before colonialism arrived, right? So you have a situation where slowly but surely, the strong power of East Africa moves one step after the other towards the Great Lake regions, right? We know it here because this is also how Islam arrived. We know it as the Swahili culture. All of that we understand comes from the East, right? And I'm not sure everyone knows, but a city like Kisangani in the middle of Congo is a city that has been established by such power, right? So what it means is that the first power that come to exploit the east of Congo historically has been Easterners. It was never people of Kinshasa, it was never Kikongos, it was never any tribe of the west of DRC that could control the wealth of the south of Congo or the east of Congo. Because what we have seen after that is the eruption of colonialism, the eruption of imperialism. And now suddenly the resources of south of Congo or east of Congo will be taken and claimed by a totally new elite, the European national bourgeoisie, right? And they will establish themselves not in the east, not in the south, but in Kinshasa. They will establish themselves in Kinshasa and they will start to try to control a territory that they will name themselves the Free State of Congo. Free State of Congo, really important. Not Congo, Free State. What was free here? Was it free for Congolese? No. It was not free for Congolese. It was free for any European power to come and take whatever they want. So what he has created is he has created a situation where now people of the east of Congo see people of the west of Congo, now Europeans, coming slowly but surely and claiming stuff, claiming resources, claiming territories, claiming like new type of productions, right? So you have a dismantlement of the system. Historically, on the African continent, before the arriving of imperialism, the east of Congo was mainly in the sphere of influence of East Africa. Now, as soon as the settlers and the imperialists created a space that was called Congo, now the resources of Congo belong to the people of the West. And that's an important dynamics here. That's an important dynamics because what we see today is still like one part of the continent versus the other part of the continent. It's the Southern Africa versus Eastern Africa. It's Western Congolese and Eastern Congolese fighting. So it's really important to understand that second dynamics. The third one, yes, this one. Then we are now in the 90s. We are now in the 90s, and what we observe in the 90s is that slowly but surely, young men and women that will be our age now suddenly start to fight. They know how to fight, exactly for the reason my colleague explained here. Because of the war, because of the genocide, we know that story, we have heard about that. What we usually don't say is that this is the moment where people learn how to fight. That generation that was there in 1990 did not know how to fight. When you ask those fighters of M23, ADF, all of the rebel groups in Congo, most of them tells you that they were in their home, they were in their farms, and then some people came with weapons, and therefore they have to defend themselves, right? This is extremely important. This is extremely important. Why is it so important? It's because it has created a situation where people know how to fight, and where people have weapons to fight, okay? Like right now in this room, we don't have people that want to fight, and we don't really have weapons. But give like 5 weapons, and you will see like the dynamics is totally gonna change. Maybe someone will stand up and be like, hey, who is that Muzungu telling us about African history? We don't want him here. And another one will stand and say, no, we want him here. And so now we're going to have conflict, right? So the situation has changed after the 90s because now young people knew how to fight and weapons became available. Really important. So first dynamics, the mushrooming of state and new form of coercions that lead to migration. Second dynamics, the fact that the east of Congo always have been taken by Easterners in Africa and not by Westerners. It was never someone from the Atlantic that claimed the east of Congo resources before the Europeans arrived. And last dynamics, last but not least, the region now has a lot of weapons and fighters. Okay, so those are for the 3 dynamics. I hope you guys are gonna remember the 3. I made them 3, so it's a bit simpler because, as we said, it's already complex scenarios, right? I came now with different hypotheses on what might happen, what should happen, and based on the dynamics that we have isolated, how can we deal with the situation, right? I'm not going to, as my colleague said, we cannot really sort out the issue of Congo ourselves. That's not a possibility for us. So we're going to look at hypotheses more than anything else. The likely hypothesis, the one that most people speak about in political science circles, is state make wars and wars make state. It's exactly what I explained to you in the first dynamics. The first dynamic was clear. You have more state. You have more leadership trying to exert their authority. They transform themselves into state, into kingdom, that kick half of the population out. The other half stay and apply the rules, right? And apply the law. So in this hypothesis, the stronger win. So the stronger win and take over. So this is more or less what's happening right now. Right now, DRC can send mercenaries. DRC can send SADC armies. DRC can send Tanzania, Malawi, South Africa. They even called Chad recently, Angola. They can call whoever they want. They lose. They lose. Like literally underground, the Congolese army has almost never won a battle in that side of the country. The last time that there were big victories were at the colonial time when the Belgians were fighting with the Germans. But since that time, you don't have like control by the army of the province. Why? Because you come from the West. Once again, that's my belief. So that's the scenario that is the most likely to happen, because that's what we see. Basically, M23 and Rwanda, they fight, they win. Why should they stop? Why should they stop? Right? If no one stopped me with that mic, why should I stop talking? I should continue talking, right? Second hypothesis. The region control is taken away from DRC government to fall into AU administration. That's what my brother here proposed. When I read that, thanks to my colleague Akelo and my colleague right here that wrote it, thank you so much for such idea. It reminded me of a time where people were arguing in East African newspaper that the DRC should be recognized by America or China. We give DRC for China for 25 years or 30 years, so they develop it for themselves, and after they succeed. It sounds like a solution, but it's a solution that stay inside this idea of sovereignty, right? So one of the conflicts we have here is that we all believe in the sovereignty of Uganda. We want to be sovereign in Uganda, right? So therefore, when we look at Congo, we think Congo should be sovereign. But the people of the East are telling us that it's the people of the West that are trying to control like what they have, right? So what type of sovereignty do we have in such a colonial border state? Is there really sovereignty? There were never sovereignty in Congo, in DRC, never. Even before, since independence, there's no sovereignty simply because it's impossible to control such a territory. It is super big. So you will always have a smuggler able to go from Equator province to sell their things in Central Africa, or people from Ituri selling them in Uganda, or people of Uganda selling them in DRC. How many smuggle story do we know between DRC and Uganda? Whatever it was smuggling coffee back in the days, whatever it was smuggling products from Kisangani to Kampala in the 70s when Mobutu was strong. It has always been a thing. So what I tried to present earlier, the idea is that the issue came with sovereignty. The issue came with the fact that Congo was claiming a sovereignty in a territory that it never controlled. So if I claim sovereignty over a territory I never control, then a problem emerges. So I will let my brother explain his proposal here. But my belief is that such a new administration is restarting from colonial time. We restart in 1885, and we said, okay, let's try to rebuild Congo as it should, with Pan-Africans, with African values, and it should work. It will not work, because Congo is a free Congo state. Free for who? Free for capitalists, free for any elite to come and try to take the resources. So I do not believe that should function. I believe that you will have the same issues of who is taking the resources, who is building on the wealth of the East, and who is, because if the wealth of East of Congo and South of Congo didn't go to Kinshasa, how many in Kinshasa would be poor? Those big Congolese that we see with big 4x4 and everything, the rich of Kinshasa, they also get their resources from exploiting provinces that they're not from, they don't come from. And that exists since Mobutu time. When during the Zairization, Mobutu gave back the land of the settlers. And he didn't give them only to local, he gave them to his personal circles, right? So now you have also some sort of other historical dynamics where other people come to take you in the world. So that is what I call the 2012 scenario. That's what happened in 2012. They signed the deal, right? They signed the deal and they said, no, M23 will now be part of the National Army of DRC. It was called Demilitarization Program. UN put a lot of money on it. Some of my friends took that money, so I know quite well how it used to function. And the idea was simple. The idea was that you integrate the M23 inside Congolese army, you integrate the M23 inside Congolese institutions, political institutions, and therefore, like Banyamulenge or Banyarwanda will be integrated inside DRC. They won't feel like they're not from DRC anymore. Okay, that is. I wish it could work, but that doesn't work. Why it didn't work? It's not even it will not work. It did not work. You put rebel inside an army they just been fighting. The army is a sum of rebels, right? In 1998, if I'm not mistaken, my colleague here will confirm, there were 4 vice presidents in Congo. 4 of them were rebels. They were rebels. How do you build a country on rebels? How do you make rebels that fight an army raise up into your army leadership? That's highly complicated. Really few army would accept such things. Really few army. You tell me that the French would have accepted such things after the Second World War? Never. Never. The French army is French. We don't integrate rebels that try to fight us or fight for our sovereignty, right? So I don't believe this is...
That's exactly what's happening in South Sudan.
That's also what's happening in South Sudan.
Yeah.
But South Sudan, they didn't have an existing army before they become a country. DRC has an army. DRC has an army. And actually, depending on who is the president, the army hierarchy changes. But DRC was once a strong powerhouse, of a strong military powerhouse. So I do not believe that anyone from the M23 is going to join the DRC army and be happy about it, or being like, yeah, it works. That's not my belief. I don't think that's how things work. I think that solution have been tested in 2012 and failed. And the fact that we're in 2025, speaking of the same thing I was talking about in 2012, shows that that's not a solution that makes sense. Last hypothesis. The last hypothesis is some sort of duplication of Rwanda, Burundi, small states. I call it the Balkanization of the East into small states that protect their people, yeah, they will, but cannot exist without the support of a father state. So a republic in Ituri that will become independent from DRC will need Uganda to function, will not be able to function without Uganda. And that might create another sovereign problem, because is it going to be real or is it going to be a puppet state? Are we creating another puppet state like we have created in different places? Or are we actually helping people build a future? Can you build a future in simply with Ituri? Is that enough? I don't know. South Sudan, for instance, we're much bigger, much, much bigger. So that's another solution that could emerge. I believe Rwanda would want the Kivu, maybe Burundi as well, and you have another state. What will happen? The rebels will go on the next phase, you know? You will eat Congo like this. It will eat Congo like this. But at least with a solution like that, you get back to the history of the region. Because the history of that region was the creation of different kingdoms that slowly but surely were organizing discipline. And now you don't have such forces anymore. So that is for the last hypothesis. I want to tell you that the east of Congo was first a place with no rulers. Then it was a region shaped by the East, the political economy of the East. And it was a place where people know how to fight and have weapons. That was the original issues. So now, what is likely to happen? Not what are the different solutions that could work. What could work is complicated. I'm not so sure. What is likely to happen? I have a more strong stand. What did happen when Malians, rebels, the Tuareg from Azawad, came to take Bamako? First, you have a foreign intervention. Us, the French. We came, our plane, blah, blah, blah. The president called us, hey, we stopped the rebels. Great, we stopped the rebels. The French army came and stopped the rebels. It was fantastic. People used to clap the French president in Timbuktu. Go and check the video, it's crazy. So, did that work? No. Foreign intervention did not work. Because more foreign powers now came and played their cards. Right? Those that were against France start to think, oh, maybe we can do something here against the French army. Or maybe we can do something here. So, what then happened? Because now that's the situation we are in DRC. Tshisekedi is calling Chadians president. Tshisekedi is calling Ramaphosa in South Africa. He's calling everyone to try to figure out, like, who is going to come? Which foreign army is going to come to solve my problem? He even started with mercenaries. We've seen those ridiculous mercenaries. 300 of them, something like this, going back to Kigali like that. It was disgusting. Disgusting, right?
As you end up there.
So what is likely to happen? What's likely to happen is the Malian scenario. The Malian scenario, after the foreign intervention, what did you have? A coup d'etat by a military. And then in Burkina Faso, same story. Foreign army. The foreign army come. They say, situation is sorted. And it's true, military talking, it was sorted. But then the people didn't have political solutions. So they continue to fight. They fight, and what happened? Irumba knows. Coup d'etat. By a military. Which military? Assimi Goïta. Who is Assimi Goïta? Who is Traoré? Those who are military, frontline. Frontline. Not second line, not third line, not talking about shit in Bamako or Ouagadougou. They were frontline. The soldiers that died on this frontline all knew who was the captain. All knew who is the most courageous of the army. The frontline knows. When you're in frontline, you know who is the most courageous. Those are the men that make the coup d'etat. So what I think is likely to happen is that a coup d'etat is going to be made by proud men of the Congolese army that are going to claim that they can win the war. That they can win the war by militarizing the situation. And that's where we are in Mali and Burkina. We are in situations where they have claimed they can win the battle. They have not yet won the battle, but we know that they put 100% of the state resources to fight the battle. I don't know if it's going to happen like this in DRC. I do not know, none of us know the future here. But what is likely to happen is that we are not going to stop the question of sovereignty. It will be, sovereignty is here since 1885. If you look at Tshisekedi, what he tells you, the Congolese, what they tell, we want our sovereignty, sovereignty, sovereignty. This is a European concept of back in the day. We have seen that it doesn't work, but he's likely to continue to recycle and reinvent himself until one day, what we call DRC, what we call that chapter of history that started with the Berlin Conference, definitely end and balkanize the region. Thank you so much.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
I think 4 days ago, I wrote in the Monitor paper that DRC should be given to the EU. I mean the AU.
African Union?
Yeah. Away from the statesmen that are governing it, and away from the alliance of Ruto, Museveni, and Kagame. I hear such arguments about how the DRC should be maintained the way it is because the AU, as you say, cannot perform, and also because Congo is a sovereign country that needs to be maintained. But I do think that we are misconceiving a few things. What is happening with Congolese leaders is that they are not governing the country. They are looting the country. And
In the eyes of African Union.
yes,
And so you want us to give it to you.
and they are unable to govern the country. Now, the future of Congo should be attached to all Africans, because Congo, in a way to speak, is the gateway for Africa's renaissance. We cannot let the question of Congo be in the hands of a few statesmen that are questionable when Congo is supposed to be Africa's future. Now the AU has its problems, but on this one, it would handle. I propose that the Commission supervises the DRC government directly, and that the DRC government reports to the AU chairperson. That way, Congo would be placed into the eyes of all Africans, and it would shift attention from the alliance that has Ruto, Mr. Museveni, and Kagame, that is only plundering the country.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
One of the solutions, I won't go in history of the DRC, but I'll just give solutions how at least this can be made in DRC. One of the solutions is about the governance of the government. Because how can a government be in control and you have a lot of rebels, different countries? We have M23, we have ADM, in fact almost East Africa, all their rebels are in DRC, most of them. So governance is bad. Another one of the solutions is regional diplomacy. DRC itself doesn't trust the region it's in. How? At first, when M23 attacked, DRC requested for help for East Africa. Within a few weeks, it said all East African soldiers withdraw. It called other countries for help. Really, that one, I see it as a problem. If you can't trust yourself, then who will trust yourself? Another thing is training your own soldiers well. How can a country be having enough resources to maintain, in fact, the whole world, but your soldiers lack weapons to defend themselves? Just a rebel attacking you and you give out all your life and you run away. I see that as a problem. If it happens also in Uganda, then that wouldn't be possible. Thank you for now.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Mine is when we ask and try to look for solutions of the DRC, it goes back to one of the concepts that I believe and stand for. I've written a book called Uongozi wa Afrika, My Education Solutions for Africa. And for me, when we talk about Congo, if you've ever suffered from diarrhea, right, the only thing you are looking for is a toilet.
So, how do you rate that?
Yes. Now, when you look at Congo, right, these other countries that we are seeing going to Congo, they are supplying toilet papers, but they're not going back to the root cause. We can see it in statistics. When it comes to the World Bank, it has given over 3.8 billion USD to Congo in terms of aid. When you look at the UN humanitarian report, it has given over 1.3 billion to USA. To Congo. USA alone has given over 9.10 billion US dollars to Congo. They're just supplying toilet papers. But we know that for you to cure diarrhea, you have to go back inside. Check what you're feeding yourself into. Congo should borrow from Botswana. Botswana was one of the least poor developing countries, and now it is ranging in one of the high income highest or income countries. And their prototype is very simple. One, they have to first fight corruption. Two, change the mindset of the people and show them that you don't have to pay, but use the resources that you have to build an economy that is very stable. And this is the same thing that Congo should look at. They should come back and stop looking for aid. Comrade Daniel talked about it that Joseph Kabila said he did not have money. Congo, with its wealth, looking for money from externalities, to carry out an election. That shows you that it's more or less like that bird that is trapped in a cage, and when you open it, it won't know the beauty that is out because it has been enslaved to that mentality from where it is taken.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
So the solutions, number one, someone talked about strengthening the governance and institutions. Here we have to address the corruption, improving the public services, and ensuring people democratic accountability. Then secondly, I'll talk about the security sector reform. We lack professional practice, as someone stated. Our army soldiers, or I may call them the police force, has eliminated the groups and now is trying to prevent the external interferences, not by themselves have failed as them. And then while Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda is trying to save their lives, as they are still saying they are neighbors. As my brother stated, Daniel said, at the end of the day it goes back to, I also said it came from the whites. I'm sorry to say, but now they're going to change his color. Now that's the fact, because before I was born, I found the war. I don't think I can find a solution now. But from my experience, I can simplify that few because, for example, we have members of parliament for youth. I happen to be the deputy speaker. I've seen DRCs how they suffer when we are crossing, because when they are from DRC, they have to go through Rwanda, then Uganda, Kenya, then we go to Tanzania. But first when I went in 2022, DRC's delegates were paying money at the border in Namanga, but we had to fight it. So here I believe when we come together we do better. When you think you know, you end up when you don't know. So when we come together, I believe we can do better. My last 2 points, we can talk about natural resources, transparent resources governance. They can do fair contracts and investments in local value addition. They have failed to involve the neighboring countries. They are looking to the euros and the dollars, and they are the very people who are now bringing in conflicts. So I think they can do better to do the contracts and simplify the problem of the natural resources. Then the last point can be justice and reconciliation. Here they have to address the historical grievances, the war crimes, and ensuring community-led reconciliation. As through this, I feel I have like 10. DRC can easily acquire and give a better country and solve their problems. Thank you so much.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
I think the best solution that we have to do for this problem is that I think Congo has to be promoting good government. And the government also has to invest in human capital. When I talk of investing in human capital, is that I mean they should develop the education and the health care for the people in that country.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
My views to solve the conflict in DRC Congo. Following 2006 and 2011 elections, there was kind of some fraud and some challenges that were faced during this election. There was violence and poor transparency. So, building strong institutions such as the judiciary, the leadership and functioning judiciary, and the Electoral Commission of DRC Congo should also be strengthened to avoid further or future cases of the elections being not transparent.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
And thank you so much to the audience that has been here at the hotel. Ladies and gentlemen, the problems of Congo are Africa's problem. So we must find the solutions for Congo from within us. The people who are plundering the minerals and the wealth of Congo actually plundering Africa's wealth. It's not Congo's wealth, it's Africa's wealth. So every solution that we go to get for Congo is our solution. Most of African leaders, especially in the region, that's why some people are blaming Sheikh for expelling the ESC stand by force. That guy had his reasons. His reasons are legitimate, community suffering. I have brought you in my country to fight the rebels against my government. You have reached in Congo, you are saying these are my brothers. What do you want me to say? To me, these are rebels. To you, they are your brothers. But they say you have come to help me. How are you helping me? Explain. That's number one. Number two, you're saying they are your brothers, but also you are collaborating with your brother to steal our minerals. That's why Kampala is full of gold. But Kampala has no mineral wealth. They have no mineral wealth, but it's full of gold. So the guy had his reasons. I think he has more information in his heart than we do here. He has his reasons. Why is it happening? Because we are not honest to ourselves. Everybody in Congo, including Zimbabwe that joined the war the other time, including South Africa right now that is there, including Uganda right now that is there, and UPDF, including Kenya. All of them are in Congo on exploitation mission, not peace. They're not interested in the peace. Right now, South Sudan has broken up again. You're going to hear them next time in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, sending peace agreement. After sending the peace agreements, they don't employ what they believe in. The person who is facilitating the peace agreement in Nairobi is the same one buying a new ammunition and uniforms for the two brothers fighting in South Africa, in South Sudan. He arms Riek Machar in the morning, in the evening, he arms Salva Kiir. In Congo, they are talking to M23, arming them, then they are coming to Shekedi, please let's talk peace. Hey, dishonesty. Dishonesty. So people look at Congo as their problem, but when they are planning their minerals, it is our resources. These are African resources. When it comes to plundering, but when it comes to solving the problem, it is Congo's problem. Who is causing the problem in Congo? I have read for you the history of Congo's conflict. It only involves the regional countries, the neighboring countries. They involve. Since it started, the neighboring countries are involved in Congo's conflict. Why? The minerals. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of this debate. I say now the name is
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.